Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the final video in this whole unhaul project I have been running on my channel here at the end of 2022. I've been going through all of my books and I have been sorting through them and deciding if I want to keep them and unhauling a number of books. And I have my final stack here on the floor beside me today to go through. And it's really my miscellaneous books. So for me, that's the genres I don't read a ton of. And so that would be romance, contemporary fiction, nonfiction. Yeah, pretty much I think those ones. And so I'm going to be going through all those books, and then at the end of all of this, I'm going to show you my shelves. And so I don't have a huge bookcase to show you, but I do want to show you my final product, how it all turned out, because it's really these two bookcases. It only has a little bit of my kids' books here and then a little bit of my homeschool books up there, which I'm not going to show you today. Otherwise, I've gone through every other book with you guys on this channel, which is just really fun. So stay tuned to the end for kind of a little bookshelf tour as well as the final number. So I'm going to be counting all the books that are remaining on my physical TBR, mostly because I'm curious. I'm not quite sure where it's going to land, but I think that would be fun. So stay tuned for those two things at the end. But otherwise, let's hop in because these videos can be a little bit long. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you've been coming for a while. So like I said, it's Unhaul Project Day. It's the last day of the Unhaul Project, and we're going to be going through my miscellaneous books. So they're in piles here. I thought I was going to sort them, but I didn't. There's kind of mishmash in here, so I'm just going to pull from the top really and tell you what I think. So starting with this one, So Becoming by Michelle Obama. I'm going to keep it. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't actually read this book. I listened to the audiobook, and that was my favorite part. I just really like her voice. I feel like she was able to bring her story alive really well. And so I just really enjoyed this. And so I'm definitely keeping this one. All right, so I did pick this up last summer, 2020 summer, White Rage, The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide. So this is by Carol Anderson, and I am still very interested in picking this up. I believe I started it, I just didn't continue with it, and I think it sounds like a really good book, and I've heard really good things about it, like lots of good research and things like that. So yeah, I'm gonna keep this on my nonfiction pile for sure. Oh, and then I have this book. I can't remember who I got this recommendation from, but this is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, A New History of Their Lost World by Stephen Brusetti. I've heard really good things about this, albeit it is a nonfiction book about dinosaurs. I heard that the author did an excellent job of just making it really interesting, not just giving you like names of dinosaurs and facts about them, but just to tell the story of the different dinosaurs and what scientists believe happened back then. And as a mom to young kids, I feel like they're always asking about dinosaurs. I have 3 boys, and so I still need to read it, but I kind of forgot about it. So I'm definitely glad I did this so that I can remember that I still want to read that. All right, here's another one. Oh, I love this book. So this is Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. This is an excellent book for introverts. I'm an introvert. I feel like a lot of readers are introverts, but not all. That's not fair. I thought this was just a really well-written, well-researched book about just the tendencies of introverts, and also just to encourage them that it's okay to be introverted. It's okay even though the world really glorifies extroverts and all that there are many strengths and good things about being introverted in personality. So I love that book. I am definitely keeping it. All right, next book, Crying in H Mart. So this book was on my list for last year when I was talking about my favorite booktubers. This is by Michelle Zauner. I still want to read this. I just feel like it's not the right time for me because it's about this girl who is walking through her mom's death. Basically, her mom gets diagnosed with cancer, and the girl is telling the story about how that went and how hard that was. I think they were a little bit estranged, and I've heard good things. I've heard it just like is such a tearjerker. So I want to read it. I just don't want to read it right now. There's just too much going on in my life that this would just be a little too close to home. So I'm going to keep it, but not read it right now. All right, next is another memoir type book, which I can't decide if I like memoirs because I collect them, but I don't read them. I don't know if that's a problem or not, but I still want to read this. So there's that. That's good. So this is called The Beauty and the Breaking by Michelle Harper. I believe this has to do with a emergency room doctor, if I am correct. Her and her husband met in medical school, and they were planning on getting married, and then upon graduation, it all falls apart. And I don't think she was married. Oh, she was married. So she gets divorced and then starts a new job and a new career and all these things. And so I think what I've heard about this book is that as she's starting this a new career, she is treating people who are just broken and hurting alongside the fact that she is broken and hurting. And so I think it just kind of heals her along the way. And that just sounds so good. So I'm keeping that. Oh, and then there's this book. So I picked this up from Book Outlet just kind of because a lot of people were reading it and loving it. And it's The Sun Does Shine, How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row by Anthony Ray Hinton. I believe this is a memoir. It's nonfiction. And it sounds really good. I really should just read it because I'm interested in it. It says there the foreword is by Brian Stevenson, the author of Just Mercy, which is another book on my TBR. I don't have it in my pile, but I've been wanting to read that one as well. And I just feel like both of them have a lot to say about like our culture and our justice system and things like that. So I want to read it. So I'm going to put it on my pile of memoirs that I never read. That pile. Oh, and then I have this book. So this is called The Nurse, True Stories of Country Nurse on the Scottish Isles by Mary J. McLeod. I think I got this from my mother-in-law to read, and I read part of it. Do I have my mark? Yeah, I read the first 100 pages and I enjoyed it, but it's not too gripping. I feel like what I enjoyed about it is just the description of the country life and the fact that people need her and she gets kind of called out in the middle of the night. And although I found that interesting, I didn't find it too interesting. So I think I am gonna unhaul this or give it back to my mother-in-law for sure. So this probably isn't gonna stay on my shelves. Another one that I meant to read last year, but I plan on reading this upcoming year. And that's The Only Plane in the Sky, An Oral History of 9/11 by Garrett M. Graff. I'm reading it for sure. My husband read this. Actually, I think I bought it for him and then I put it on my shelves, but he really enjoyed it. I've heard nothing but good things, so I'm keeping it. All right. Okay, this one. I've really enjoyed this book. So Ona Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. I think I read this year and I just really enjoyed it. I like books that kind of jump around in time. And so this is about a woman who hops around in time. Every New Year's, she starts into a different year. So for instance, it can be December 31st and she can be 18 years old. And then she wakes up on January 1st as a 52-year-old or something like that. And then the next year she jumps back to 35 and then 42. So she lives her life out of order. I thought it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. So I think I'll keep it. This might be a good example of would I read it again? Maybe I would read it again. I feel like it was so fun that I might read it again. So I'm going to keep that. All right, on to this one. So I read this one as well. So this is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I read it. I enjoyed it. This book also kind of messes with time, but in a very different way. So this talks about a woman who's unhappy with her life, ends up in the midnight library, and the librarian says, we'll pick a book off the shelf and it will show you what your life would have been like if you would have made that choice instead of the choice you made. Because she has all these regrets. She keeps thinking that her life would have been better if she would have made better decisions. And this kind of plays out that idea, which I thought was really clever. And I thought it had excellent mental health representation and all of that. I thought it was really well done. Am I going to read it again? I don't think so. And so I think I'm just going to unhaul this one just because I'll pass it on to someone else who can enjoy it, but I don't think I would read it again. Here's this one. So Romance, People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I have not read any of her books. I still haven't read this one. I want to read it. And I believe it's about these two friends who kind of live life together and something happens and then they go on this final vacation to kind of fix things. Or maybe I'm thinking of a completely different book. Not sure, but I'm going to keep it. I don't have that many romance on my shelf, so if I ever feel like it, I want to have one to read. Okay, there's this book, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was really fun and clever. It's about this bank robbery basically and these people who are hostages in this bank robbery, but they all kind of have messed up lives or the anxious lives and they help each other out if I remember right. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I don't think I'm going to read it again. I don't gravitate towards contemporary fiction to begin with and I definitely don't reread it. So I think I'm going to donate this as well. And I forgot to mention that I started a Pango bookshop. I'll link it down below. I'm going to obviously put all these unhaul books on there. So if you're interested in The Midnight Library or Anxious People, I'll be putting that on there as soon as I post this video. Oh, this book. So this is contemporary fiction. So someone I used to know by Page Tune. I loved this book. I was totally surprised by it. It's a dual timeline book that tells the story about this woman when she was a child. Her parents are foster parents, so she always kind of had a revolving door of siblings, foster siblings. But during a formative summer, she had these two friends. One was a foster brother and one was a boy from down the road. And things happened, and then you see what happened as it plays out in the future. And I really like the foster care setting in this book. I thought it was very impactful, emotionally speaking. So I'm keeping this book. All right, so this is One Day in December by Josie Silver. It's a romance, and I feel like it's a really good romance for this time of year, for December. And I did just mention this in my Christmas book recommendations. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was really fun. It was kind of a love at first sight idea that this girl was on a bus and caught the eye of a man who was sitting outside of a cafe and felt like they were destined to be together, and then spent the next year looking for him, only to find out that he was dating her best friend. And it goes from there. So am I going to read this again? No, probably not. Should I unhaul it? Probably. I'm going to unhaul it. Okay, so this is We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lane. I really like this book. Again, this is a contemporary fiction book. This is really a family saga about this family who owns a pub, and then the sister who ran off to find her life kind of screwed it up and came back and has to deal with the family and some other things that happened. So I'm going to keep it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I could reread it, but also it just was an impactful book for me. So kind of like someone I used to know, I'm going to keep it. Okay, so Normal People by Sally Rooney. I picked this up at a library book sale. I've heard it's okay. I'm going to unhaul it without even reading it. I haven't even felt drawn to reading it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't even know what it's about. Sorry, but I'm going to unhaul. And then I have this one, An American Marriage by Tarari Jones. This is another one. I'm just not sure if I want to read it. So I think it has to do with a man who is arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and he expected his wife to wait for him, and then she didn't, I think. I think I'm going to unhaul it. I just haven't wanted to read it. Hasn't even made it close to my TBRs, so I'm going to unhaul it. Okay, here's a book that I found at a library book sale because I loved it as a kid. So it's The Giver by Lois Lowry. I'm keeping it. I loved it as a kid. I'm going to keep it. That way I can read it to my kids. Okay. Oh, this one, Life of Pi by Jan Martel. I don't really want to read it. I feel like I picked it up because it was a popular book, but I'm not that interested in it. So I'm going to unhaul it. I am making lots of progress on my unhaul pile in this group of books. Okay, to move on then. Oh, Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. I really enjoyed this book. It's definitely a thriller, courtroom thriller. There's an accident that happens at this oxygen submarine or something like that, which was used to treat illnesses, especially things like autism and Asperger's and things like that. And then there is an explosion and it kills a bunch of people. And the question is, what happened? Who did it? Was it one of the moms who was just fed up with having a special needs child? Was it the owner of the submarine? I thought it was a really good book. I'm keeping it. I liked it a lot. Okay, so this one, The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I'm just not that interested in it. I feel like it's a contemporary romance that's also young adult that all happens in one day, which are all things that don't sound that good to me. I can't even remember where I got this book, but Cruel Beautiful World by Carolyn Levitt. I don't think I want to read this book. So this sounds like it is about a girl who is trying to run off with a much older man. So an age gap romance, contemporary fiction, thriller. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but they want to live off-grid in Pennsylvania and her sister doesn't want her to. And it says this examines the distance between seduction and love, loyalty and duty, the complicated legacy of family. Nope, not my kind of book. This one. So this is Alice Walker, The Color Purple. I'm not necessarily drawn to this book, but I think I'm going to keep it. It's a classic. I've heard amazing things about her writing style. This maybe is kind of more of a maybe on the maybe pile, but we'll put it for now as keeping it. Okay, so to move into some nonfiction that's very specific for me. And so I have some things that I'm really interested in that I'm collecting books for all the time. And that being like science and Christian faith and how do they go together, and really honestly just trying to learn about it. I have a big stack of a lot of that stuff. This one doesn't necessarily have anything to do with faith, but it has to do with like fossils and extinction and things like that. And this book, it's a fascinating book. I thought it was really good. I tabbed some of it. I don't think I ever totally finished it, but I finished most of it. It's called The Sixth Extinction and Unnatural History by Elizabeth Colbert. It's really interesting. It has a lot to do with what is going on currently with different species and extinction rates, and the fact that we're coming up on the next big extinction of lots of different species due to, I'm sure you guessed it, human behavior. So I really liked it. I liked the audiobook too because I listened to it kind of both at the same time. So I'm definitely keeping this. Oh, this one was an interesting one. So this is Finding God in the Waves, How I Lost My Faith and Found It Again Through Science. This is by Mike McHargue. He's known as like Science Mike. He's on like a couple different podcasts. I thought this story was really interesting. It's basically him telling his story, how he grew up in the church and was very much involved, and then was exposed to some science, and that just really threw him. But then the science is what brought him back to faith and Christianity, which I found really beautiful. And I think it was a really cool testament to actually asking those questions, asking some hard questions instead of just being like burying your head in the sand and not wanting to enter into the controversy. And so I was encouraged by his words and his story. So I'm keeping that. I thought it was a really good book. This book. So this is a classic, I'm pretty sure. It's called The Plague by Albert Camus. Yeah, it was originally published in 1948. I believe it has to do with the bubonic plague, and it says it's set in North Africa. So I'm curious. I'm curious to read that. I really do enjoy infectious disease books. I mean, I have my PhD in immunology, if you didn't know that about me. So I'm particularly drawn to science, and so I even like pandemic books. I know some of you wouldn't even imagine reading a pandemic book, but I like them. Okay, here's another one that I'm currently reading, albeit very slowly. I am reading it. It's called The Story of Earth, the first of 4.5 billion years from stardust to living planet by Robert M. Hazen. This is really good. This guy is like a geologist, so he cares about rocks and minerals and things like that. So he's telling a story of just how the Earth came to be based on what they have discovered in just like dust or minerals, and I found it really interesting. I mean, I know the general premise and the general theories of the different time frames in how the Earth was formed. It's a hard science because you can't prove anything. Nobody was there. But I like thinking about stuff like this, and I feel like this book kind of adds to my thoughts on all of that. So I'm definitely keeping it. I'm currently reading it. So, I also have this one. So this is The Sea Around Us by Rachel Carson. So this is another classic. Yeah, originally published in 1951. She was a naturalist. She really had a way of writing about just water and our planet and conservation and things like that. So I don't know. I think it sounds really interesting. So it's definitely nonfiction science. All right, so as for some fiction and a more recently published book. So I read The End of October by Lawrence Wright, and this is a pandemic book. And I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was very fast moving. It follows this like emerging pathogen as it starts slowly spreading, and then the important epidemiologist trying to shut it all down and all these things and lock the borders. And then this one man gets through and he goes to like, I think Mecca or something like that, and spreads it to so many people. And it just kind of goes from there as it tells the story of him trying to get back to his family and just how it works from the inside out, kind of the WHO and things like that. I found it really interesting. It did kind of get a little bit sloggy there at the end, but I still enjoyed it. It was also a little on the sciencey side, so I can see how some people might find it a little bit boring, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to keep it. Just, it's a fun pandemic book. Along with this one, which is probably my favorite one. So The Hot Zone by Richard Preston. This one's about Ebola. The idea that some monkeys from Africa brought back Ebola to DC, and then they figured it out in the biosafety level 4, which I'm just fascinated by. I worked in a lab in my PhD that did level 3 work, so I can't even imagine level 4 work. And then I have a number of books I picked up that are on kind of a science and faith idea. So I have Darwin's Black Box by Michael J. Behe, The Biochemical Challenge to Evolution. I haven't read it yet, but I still want to. This is God is Here to Stay, Science, Evolution, and Belief in God. This is by Thomas McFall, which I've read parts of this and I really enjoyed it so far. I just really enjoy some of the messaging of like, once you understand how fine-tuned the universe is, it just really speaks to like a creator and things like that, which I find very encouraging. And then this one is More Than a Theory by Hugh Ross, and another Hugh Ross, which is Navigating Genesis, a Scientist's Journey through Genesis 1. I've read parts of these. I really just need to get back to reading them a little bit more closely and trying to learn more, but I love learning. So these are right up my alley. So I'm keeping all of these books. And so along the same vein is that idea of like learning more about evolution and things like that. And so I picked up The Story of Life in 25 Fossils by Donald R. Prothero. It's got black and white pictures, so I'm not sure, but I thought it would be good to know what the science is in kind of the fossil world. And so I picked up a book about it. That's just how I am. Totally different stack. So I picked up Raising White Kids, Bringing Up Children in Racially Unjust America by Jennifer Harvey. So I've heard this is really good, and I feel like it could definitely add to our parenting. So I want to read it. I really want to read it. So that is definitely staying, as well as this one, which I feel like if I ever made an intimidating books video, this one would be on it. So this is Cast, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. It sounds really good. It really talks about just America and the structure of America and having social classes. And we don't think we have a hierarchy system, but really we do kind of operate that way. It's more subconscious. And I really want to know what this author has found and her different research into that, because I'm curious about that. So I really want to read that still, along with this beast of a book. But I just picked this up. So this is A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I really like the Obamas. Sorry, I know some people really dislike them. I just find them to be inspirational people. I love hearing about their childhood and how they parented and how hardworking they both are. And so I just thought this would be a really fun book to dive into that. It's a heavy book. Maybe I'll look into the audiobook for it. Okay, so here is another area that I'm interested in learning more about, and that is American history. And so I picked up a number of books to just kind of dive into it. I kind of have these three main books as historically going in order. So starting with this one, American Colonies, The Settling of North America by Alan Taylor. And then I have A Nation Without Borders, The United States and Its World in an Age of Civil Wars by Stephen Hahn. And then this one, American Empire. So this is 1945 to 2000 by Joshua B. Freeman. So these are all the Penguin classics. Yes, it's all the Penguin classics that kind of go into that. So I like the fact that it gives a very big and detailed history, but it's not history books. I feel like they have a little bit more of a living book feel, like story-based feel to them, or at least that's my hopes. I'll let you know when I pick it up. And then these ones also I picked up. So this is A Different Mirror, A History of Multicultural America by Ronald Takaki. I think it sounds really good. I feel like I could learn so much about that. Along with this, so kind of similar in vein, An Indigenous People's History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. I feel like these 5 books will kind of help me understand things a little bit better or learn more. I think I'm really interested in it partly because I am a homeschool mom that knows I'm going to teach American history to my kids, and I want to have good conversations. I want to know more. Do you know what I mean? So I picked those up. All right, here's some random books from over the years. I picked up Run Like a Mother, How to Get Moving and Not Lose Your Family, Job, and Sanity. I've read parts of this and I really enjoyed it. I need to get back into running. I really enjoyed running. My twins are old enough. I don't really have a good excuse anymore. And then I picked up this one, mostly because I really wanted to get my kids to eat healthy. And this is Secrets of Feeding a Healthy Family, How to Eat, How to Raise Good Eaters, and How to Cook. I don't know if it has helped me at all, but I still need to do that, so maybe I should bust this back out. And then I have this book. So this is The New Plant Parent, Developing Your Green Thumb and Caring for Your Houseplant Family. I like it. It's by Daryl Chain. I felt like it was very useful and helpful for me as I've been collecting plants. I haven't always been a plant keeper, but I love using plants more as decor and decoration. So I thought this book was really helpful, along with this one. So Skincare by Carolyn Herons. I'm not sure how to say her name, but I thought it was a very useful book. I think she has a blog or something like that. So I have that one. I'm keeping it. All right, down to the last 4. You can see this has been very hodgepodge, but I have this book. So this is Non-Computable You, What You Do That Artificial Intelligence Never Will. This is by Robert J. Marks. So I was sent this copy by the Discovery Institute, which thanks again to the Discovery Institute for that, because it's a really interesting book so far. I started it. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but it has to do with artificial intelligence, which is more on the leading front of research right now. So I thought it was really good so far. So I'm enjoying it. I'll keep reading it. Oh, and then this gets to two books I recommend all the time on my channel. So these two, especially when it comes to somebody that's interested in science and faith. So 7 Days That Divide the World, The Beginning According to Genesis and Science by John C. Lennox. I loved this book, as well as this one. This one's just a little more in depth, and it's Science and Faith, Friends or Foes by C. John Collins. Both excellent resources if this is an interest of yours. I recommend those. I've read them both and I'm keeping them for sure. And then this one I'm currently reading as well, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually listening to it on audio. So this is A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. It is pretty much what it sounds like, and I love it. I feel like I learn little bits and pieces of a lot of different science, especially science I'm not familiar with. It's not my wheelhouse. I don't understand how space works and relativity and all those things. But I feel like Bill Bryson's writing style really brings it to kind of the novice to help me understand how it works. So I'm keeping it, obviously, because I'm currently reading it. So those are my last books to go through, and you can see it is definitely a hodgepodge, and you also learned a bit about what I'm interested in the vein of my nonfiction and things like that. So roughly, from what I can see, it looks like I'm unhauling about 10. I've read about 15, and I have a TBR pile of about 25. So not too bad. So this is a shelf a lot of them go on, as well as up above I have a lot of my more science and nonfiction up there, but I feel like it was a pretty good unhaul. Again, I will post those to Pango, and then let me put all the books back and show you the tour of the bookshelf. And then I will probably just pop the number up on the screen as to what my official physical TBR number is. I'm not really driven too much by that. I really like having choices, but I'm curious too. At the end of all this, I'm curious how many books I have not read that I still want to read, obviously, because I have kept them. I went through this whole process to keep them. So I will officially end the video here, but I'll post a clip here at the end. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel, and stay tuned for a look at my bookcases. All right, take care.